Hello students, welcome to Focus Math Plus. In this session, we are going to discuss the second part of the chapter 3, the world of numbers. As the previous exercise 3.1, was based on natural numbers and whole numbers, and this exercise is going to be based on integers, and hence we are also going to look into the integer rules as well. But before we start discussing the questions and also learning integer rules, we have to recall the classification of numbers. So the number system begins with complex numbers and it has been bifurcated as real numbers and imaginary numbers. So under the real number system, we have natural numbers, whole numbers, integers, rational numbers, and irrational numbers as well. Natural numbers comprise of the numbers starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And whole numbers comprises of all the natural numbers in addition to the number 0. Integers comprise of all the whole numbers in addition to the negative numbers as well, and the rational numbers comprise of terminating decimals, terminating and repeating decimals, fractions as well, and also irrational numbers are non-terminating and non-repeating decimals. Okay, so we shall be looking into these later, but first let's look into the integers. Natural numbers are a subset of whole numbers, and whole numbers in turn are subset of integers because natural numbers comprise of the numbers starting from 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And whole numbers comprise of all of these numbers and also it includes 0 as well. And integers include all of these numbers 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And besides this, it also include the values -1, -2, -3, -4, and so on. So these are what are called as integers. So this exercise is based on integers. So integers are whole numbers without fractions or decimals and then negatives and also including 0. So negative numbers, numbers that are lesser than 0. 0 is neither positive or negative and positive integers are the values which are greater than 0. Hence, you could see on a number line, 0 is the middle, and to the right we have positive integers. And as you move towards the right, the values increase. And towards the left, we have the negative integers. And as you move towards the left, the values decrease. So let's look into a few rules stated by Brahmagupta. So Brahmagupta's rule of 0. When 0 is added to a number, the number remains unchanged. As you could see in this example, 7 plus 0 is 7. And any number added to 0 will give you the same number. So the number remains unchanged. Next rule, when 0 is subtracted from the number remains unchanged. So when you subtract 0 from any number, the number is going to remain the same. As in this example, 9 take away 0 is 9. So the number is unchanged. And the third rule says that when any number is multiplied by 0, the result is 0. So any huge number, let it be 1000, 1000 times 0 is 0. So any number multiplied to 0 will give you a 0. So this is a general form, like 0 leaves a number unchanged in addition and subtraction because you see the first two rules, we have the same number. And in the product, we get a 0, so which is multiplication. The arithmetic of integers. Brahmagupta gave explicit rules for adding and multiplying these integers, which we still use exactly as he wrote them over 1300 years ago. In the first rule, we have a fortune plus a fortune is a fortune. So in these rules, fortune means positive integers. So a positive integer plus a positive integer gives you a positive integer. So if a positive 5 plus positive 4 gives you a positive 9. The next rule, a debt plus a debt is a debt. So here in this rule, debt means a negative integer. So a negative integer plus a negative integer would give you a negative integer. Like in this example, 5 negatives and 4 negatives make 9 negatives. So if you owe somebody 5 rupees and borrow 4 more rupees, so together you owe 9 rupees, right? So we add the numbers and we copy their sign. The third rule, a fortune minus 0 is a fortune. So in this rule, fortune means a positive integer. A positive integer minus 0 gives you a positive integer. The example says 7 is a positive integer and we subtract 0 from it and we get back 7 again. So which is a positive integer as well. And similarly, it applies to the negative number as well. A negative integer, take away 0, gives you back the negative integer. It's like subtracting a 0 is not affecting the number. The number remains unchanged. The product of a debt and a fortune is debt. So it is like multiplying a negative integer with a positive integer gives you a negative answer. In this example, negative 3 times 4 gives you negative 12. And the last rule, the product of two debts is a fortune. Like negative times negative is a positive value. Negative integer times a negative integer gives you a positive integer. I hope the rules are clear. You must have learned these rules in your previous grades as well. Now let's review the few rules of integers based on multiplication and division. As you could see, positive number times a positive number gives you a positive response, and a negative integer times a negative integer gives you a positive response as well. Okay, so as you could see, then when the signs are same, positive, positive, negative, negative. So when you multiply the numbers with the same sign, the answer is always positive. So when the integers of the same sign are multiplied or divided, the response is always the same. But the other way around, wherein one number is positive and the other number is negative, the response is always negative. And this applies to division as well. Negative number times a positive number gives you a negative answer. So when the signs are different, you get the answer to be negative. So even here, when the signs are different, when you divide two numbers, the response is always negative. So the rules of multiplication and division are pretty easy and it's just exactly the same. Whatever applies for multiplication applies to division as well. Now let's start discussing the questions from exercise 3.2. The first question, it says the temperature in the high altitude desert of Ladakh is recorded as 4 degrees Celsius at noon. By midnight, it drops by 15 degrees Celsius. What is the midnight temperature? So here you could see the word drop. So the word drop, it means that it is going to be going down. So which means it's a subtraction problem. So 4 degrees Celsius take away 15 degrees Celsius gives you what? Because we know that 15 take away 4 is 11, and the other way around, 4 take away 15 is negative 11. So whenever you're subtracting a larger number from a smaller, the response is always negative. And whenever you're subtracting a smaller number from a larger, the response is positive. So because in this question we are subtracting a larger number, which is 15, from 4, which is a smaller value, you get the response to be as 11. Right, so let the temperature at noon be 4 degrees Celsius. The temperature drops by 15 degrees midnight. So it's a subtraction problem. So 4, we start from 4 on the number line and we go 15 units left. Why do we go left? Because it is a subtraction problem. So 4 take away 15 is negative 11. So the answer to this question is negative 11. The midnight temperature is negative 11 degrees Celsius. Because a drop in temperature is shown by subtraction. Moving to the left on the number line means the values decrease. I hope the question is clear. Let's move to the next question, wherein you have a spice trader takes a loan, which is debt, of rupees 850. The next day, he makes a profit, fortune, of rupees 1200. The following week, he incurs a loss of 450 rupees. So write this sequence as an equation using integers and also calculate his final financial standing. Let's discuss the solution to this question. As you could see in this question that a few words are given such as loan, and you have the word profit. and the word loss. So which means loan is a debt. So you represent that with a negative sign. And profit is something that which you've made, fortune. So that would be represented as a positive integer. And a loss is to be represented with a negative sign. So that turns out to be a negative integer. So write this as an equation. Initially, it started with 850 loan. So it's negative integer, negative 850. And he then makes a profit of 1200. So this number is represented as a positive integer. And then he incurs a loss of 450 rupees. So that's going to be minus 450. Now we got all these integers. 850 is a negative integer, 1200 is a positive integer, 450 is a negative integer. We need to put all of these as an equation. Negative 850 plus 1200 plus negative 450. Because it's an equation, you need to have an equal sign. So we're just going to write them all together. And because we have negative 850 plus 1200, so this turns to be a subtraction problem. You can use commutative property and swap their places. So 1200 take away 850 gives you positive 350, right? And you then have to subtract 450 from 350. So 350 take away 450 gives you negative 100, because whenever you subtract a larger number from a smaller, you get a negative answer. So it's negative 100, and that's the trader's final financial standing, which means that he is in a debt of rupees 100. Let's move on to the next question. Calculate the following using Brahmagupta's laws. So we've seen the laws earlier, the laws of multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. In the first question given above, you have to multiply. And we see that the signs are different. This is a negative value and this is a positive value. So when the signs are different, negative times positive gives us a negative response. So 12 times 5 is 60, and this is going to be a negative integer. Negative 60 is the answer. Second question, when both the values are negative, which means when both the signs are same. So when you multiply a negative value with a negative value, the response is positive. Negative 8 times negative 7 is positive 56. So the response is positive. The third question, it's a subtraction problem. So subtracting a negative number is like adding a positive number. So 0 plus 14 gives you 14. You could also make it this way, that two consecutive negatives makes a positive. The next subdivision, you have a negative number and a positive number, and it is division. And you have to understand that the same rules applies for division also. So 20 could be obtained by multiplying 4 with 5. So 4 times 5 is 20. So when you divide 20 by 4, you get the other factor, which is 5. Now the question is, should it be negative or positive? So this one number is negative and the other number is positive. So when the signs are different, the answer is negative. So this is a negative integer. I hope this is clear. Let's move on to the last question. Explain using real world example of debt why subtracting a negative number is same as adding a positive number. Now let's consider an example. Rahul owes his friend rupees 10. Later, his friend decides to waive off or forgive rupees 5 of that debt. So how much does Rahul owe? So we can write this as a mathematical equation. 10 minus of, because he's planning to waive off, minus of minus 5. Why is it minus 5? It is minus 5 because it is a debt. So it is minus 5. So two consecutive negatives could be written as a positive. So it's going to be 10 plus 5, which gives you a 15. So subtracting a negative number means removing a debt of that amount. Removing a debt is the same as adding the money, right? So subtracting a negative number is same as adding a positive value. Say, for example, if you have the number 5 and minus of minus 8. So this is going to turn up to 5 plus 8, and that gets you 13. So subtracting a negative number is same as adding a positive number. With that, we come to the end of this exercise, and let's recap the addition and subtraction rules for integers. While adding integers with the same sign, we add the numbers and we copy its sign. Like in this example, 7 is positive, 5 is also positive. So we add both of these positive integers and the response is positive as well, which is positive 12. The next example, 7 is negative and 5 is also negative. So we add the numbers 7 and 5 and we copy its sign. So when we have integers of the same sign, we add the numbers and we copy its sign. So when we add integers with different sign, we subtract the smaller number from the larger and we carry the sign of the larger value. So in this case, the 7 is a larger number when compared to 5. So if we subtract 5 from 7, we get 2. But since because 7, the larger number has a negative sign before it, so this number will take a negative sign. And the next example, 5 is smaller and we subtract 5 from 7, we get a 2. And our response is positive because the larger number 7 is positive. So when the signs are different, we subtract the smaller number from the larger, but we take the sign of the larger number. While we subtract, we keep the first number. We change the subtraction to addition symbol and we change the sign of the second number. So subtracting a negative number is like adding a positive number. So 7 minus negative 5 is 7 plus 5, which is 12. And negative 7 minus negative 5, the same thing applies here. Subtracting a negative number is like adding a positive number. So negative 7 plus 5 gives you a negative 2 because 5 is smaller. We subtract 5 from 7 and we get a 2, but we take the sign of the larger number, which is 7, and it is negative. Hence the rules for addition and subtraction of integers. I hope the lesson is clear. Thanks for watching.